It says U.S. military installations will be used as detention centers, and federal law enforcement agents from around the country could be used if these kind of camps are set up. Then my good friend who publishes the Free American put out this article, Government Admits Concentration Camp Program. Quotes Congressman Henry Gonzalez, Democrat from Texas. He says, the truth is, yes, the plans are here, where you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, evoke the military and arrest Americans and put them in detention camps. That's Congressman Henry D. Gonzalez from San Antonio, Texas. Here's somebody that sent me an article. It says President Bush in 1989 authorized the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to build 43 primary camps having a capacity of 35,000 to 45,000 prisoners each. Then, just as I was going to press for this video in August of 2002, I read a newspaper report that 200 prison camps could be built in the United States and elsewhere in the world for Al-Qaeda Arab terrorists. We go all the way back, my friends. Here's an article talking about the history of concentration camps. Did you know that back in August 3, 1948, J. Edgar Hoover and the Attorney General of that time, a J. Howard McGrath, set up a plan whereby President Truman could suspend constitutional liberties during a national emergency? It says here the plan was codenamed Security Portfolio. Well, the New Age has a plan. Here from the book Dawning of the New Age New World Order, my good friend Dennis Cudahy quotes Lucifer Trust, basically, President Mary Bailey. She wrote a letter in 1970. She says, there is the emergence of a new world order and a divine plan at work. And she said, this plan will take place in the next quarter of a century. Well, a lot of people are worried about an organization named FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. A lot of people say, but FEMA, they're there just for tornadoes and hurricanes to help us. Surely, Tex Mars, you must be mistaken. My friends, I'm not the only one that's mistaken. If I were mistaken, here's an article in Media Bypass magazine, and it says that FEMA is a blueprint for tyranny. This goes all the way back to the Nixon administration, because Dick Nixon set up FEMA, and we know what a great president he was. And guess what? When Bill Clinton was president, when he was in office, he announced that the United States Army Reserve and all of the reserves in the United States would be reorganized to conform to the configuration of FEMA. FEMA is going to control our National Guard and all of our reserve military forces within the United States. And they've set up 10 regions, and I believe there will be concentration camps in all of those. Now, a lot of people say, but Tex, you just don't understand. It's the victims of hurricanes and tornadoes and floods that FEMA is concerned about. Yeah, well, look at this lawsuit almost a decade ago. Here's the news item that says, victims of Hurricane Iniki in Hawaii and the 92 riots in Los Angeles have settled a lawsuit accusing the Federal Emergency Management Agency of providing inadequate disaster services. After nearly 18 months of negotiations, FEMA agreed to work more closely with local authorities, improve outreach, better train its workers, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on to say, in other words, FEMA wasn't even planning on taking care of these things, but people began to sue them. They said, okay, we'll do a little bit. My friends, about 3% of FEMA's work has to do with disaster preparedness. The rest, I believe, has to do with the concentration camp program and the continuity of program situation. Now you say, Tex, this all sounds too unbelievable. Way back in the Spotlight newspaper, back in 1984, was this incredible report that President Reagan ordered concentration camps. Now this had to do with something codenamed Rex 84. Did you know that Rex is the 10th degree of the Illuminati that was set up in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt over in Europe? Yes, the Order of the Illuminati. Rex when you graduated to the Rex, which was the highest degree of initiation, you became your own God on earth. That's what they believed. If you could be initiated into the highest rank, the 10th degree of the Illuminati, Rex, you became a Rex, God on earth. Isn't it interesting that in 1984, Colonel Oliver North, working with Senior George Bush and others in the Pentagon, with the approval evidently of Ronald Reagan, it is said, at least Oliver North claimed that, they set up this concentration camp program. And by the way, they mentioned that there would be custodial facilities for dissidents and those who or political opponents, resistors, or outspoken critics of the government in times of emergency. Are you an outspoken critic of the government? Have you written a letter to the editor? Have you complained to a friend or a neighbor about the IRS or what the FBI has done or some other agency of government? You could be targeted for one of these concentration camps. And by the way, they even had a plan for this, and this has been exposed. Eglin Air Force Base. These are some of the sites of these camps, these concentration camps. Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, Vanden Air Force Base in California, Fort McCoy, Washington, Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Washuka, Arizona, Camp Crone near Miami, Florida, Oakdale, California, Fort Drum, New York, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and it goes on and on. You say, well, that was then. Today is today. Here from the Wall Street Journal is an article that says more terror suspects may sit in limbo. White House seeks to expand indefinite detentions in military brigs, even for U.S. citizens. Hey, we got a war of terrorism going on. All is fair in love and war, including putting American citizens who are guilty of nothing, but they're suspected terrorists. They might be associated with a terrorist, meaning maybe they wrote a letter to a friend overseas that was considered a potential terrorist. Or maybe they talked about something that the government didn't like. Now they can be arrested and imprisoned and locked up in a military installation forever and never even brought before a court. Now, you say, friend, text, prove some of these things to me. We have a clip now from the hearings, joint hearings of Congress. Senator Inouye of Hawaii was the chairman, Democrat. Congressman Jack Brooks was the head from the House of Representatives. He was there again. This was a joint committee. And they were holding hearings about the Iran-Contra affair. And suddenly, Congressman Brooks began to speak, and what happened was amazing. Listen to this, my friends.
I don't know if in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was.
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
Notice, friends, what was said in this. Congressman Brooks wanted them to bring out in public the fact of these concentration camp plans. Oliver North he's just a quisling. He's just a little military nobody. But he was helping to put these together as a bureaucrat there in the Pentagon and the White House. He called it the project. The project. The concentration camp project, he should have called it. But look at what Representative Brooks says. I was concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in the Miami papers and several others there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan that would suspend the American Constitution. And Chairman Inouye says, we can't talk about that. We'll have to go in private and speak about that. In other words, we don't want the public to know about that. Did you know that recently Newsmax.com on the internet, one of the top news sources, published this article, FEMA's plan for mass destruction attacks? Of course it's true. They gave out a contract for $300 million to build concentration camps. That's what they are. New cities to relocate people. There'll be relocations that are going to be occurring. That's what they're really saying. Now, let's move very fast here. We've got so much information for you. And by the way, I even have a map here in my files. I wish I had time to bring this up to you. These are some of the installations of Rex 84 project, the concentration camp plan for the United States. And as I said, this was even discussed in the Senate floor. Here's in the hearings. Here, for example, are the badges. This is from my good friend Lawrence Patterson's Criminal Politics magazine several years back. Did you know that FEMA, and by the way, look very close at FEMA. I want you to see their symbol. I want you to see their symbol. Do you see what it is? The eagle, but look inside. It's the triangle with the black circle border behind it. That is an occult symbol, the triangle within the circle. And that's the symbol of FEMA. And by the way, these are patches. These are patches for the National Police Force that has been established. Yes, patches for their uniforms. They do have a national police forces. This newspaper put out this magazine trying to warn people. Unfortunately, this is just a small publication. It says FEMA and Fed police patches are red flags. You better watch out for what's coming in the future. And I've got so much for you more, my friends. Here's a letter that gives proof that there is indeed an Army regulation on what is called a civilian inmate labor program. And attached to this was the plan for setting up these labor camps throughout America in time of emergency. This plan several years back was called Operation Garden Plot. Operation Garden Plot. And I have a copy. This actually is from Headquarters United States Air Force all the way back to 1984. Civil Disturbance Plan 55-2 Garden Plot. It was classified, and through the Freedom of Information Act, some people got it unclassified and were able to gain a copy of it, and I have a couple of copies here in my files. This is the actual plan of what will take place when the alarm goes off. Now, I want you to understand, I'm not the first one to expose these things. By the way, maybe I should go back real quickly. In Washington Report, I have it here in front of me. You'll see it on the screen. There's a statement from the editor of this some years ago. He said, ask your congressman or senator to check out Pentagon Manual FM-10. That's yet another manual. It outlines Army operations to round up U.S. citizens and hold them in concentration camps. It is for real. He said, want to bet your congressman and senator will lie and tell you it's just some fruitcakes on talk radio? Yeah, that's what they will tell you. You know, I've been able to receive a copy of this. This was a booklet put out by a man named William Pabst. He sued the United States government. It went to federal district court, and then it went to the United States Court of Appeal. He stated there is a plan for concentration camps in America. All the way back to the 70s, William Pabst. I have the transcripts from the court hearings. Even the judge, the federal judge on the bench, admitted it. But they decided that Mr. Pabst didn't really have the jurisdiction and the standing to sue in court. Can you believe that? But it was admitted. And by the way, the government's attorneys, the U.S. Justice Department lawyers fought like tooth and nail to stop the disclosure of this. But I have these plans in this book. Now, that's not the only one. I have so much more for you here. By the way, in this Civil Affairs Operations Manual, it even shows how to set up a concentration camp, where the latrine will be, where the messing or the cooking and eating facilities will be, where the dormitories will be, and so forth. Now, let's move on just a little bit more. I wish I had time to discuss this. Here was a man who sent me massive documentation. He was very high involved in government activities. And he sent me massive documentation